No, marketing is not searching for people in pain. Marketers have lots of knowledge. Founders have none. I've often seen founders conflate what they need to do to create their startup with what it takes to run an established business. It is crucial to understand the difference. Here's how to think about it. Let's imagine a disaster where a marketer wakes up one day to discover that they have no customer data. All of their databases were somehow wiped out. This is horrible, but there's a silver lining. Only the databases were wiped out. The business itself is still running. So the marketer can go get more customer data, turn that data into knowledge, and use that to make decisions for their next marketing campaign. Now let's think about the founder of a startup with no customers. For these founders, every day is a data disaster. Every morning begins with a full cup of coffee and an empty database. Even worse, there's no clear starting point because there's no customers to learn from. Founders struggle to create the knowledge that they need to make decisions for their startup. Today, most founders tackle this challenge by barreling through, creating a marketing campaign and everything else that they need for their startup using assumptions, not knowledge. And then, after a year, the founders recognize that the startup will never get customers and that they have nothing to show for all their effort. This sucks. So, what's a better first step? The founder needs to quickly get a signal whether it's worth the effort to pursue the startup idea in the first place. Welcome to the Nascent podcast. I'm Mike Vladimir, and I am obsessed with being decisive about whether a startup idea is worth pursuing. If you're a founder worried about wasting a year on a startup idea, and especially if you're pivoting your startup, then Nascent is for you. This is episode 25. No, marketing is not searching for people in pain because marketers have knowledge that founders don't. This episode is a follow-up on episode 22, which was called Yes, Search for People in Pain, but They're Invisible. I'm really excited because this is my first follow-up episode in response to an awesome audience question. The question was basically, isn't searching for people in pain the same as marketing? Nope. The difference is all about knowledge. So right now I want to first unpack the term customer and give a quick recap of episode 22 for context, and then we're going to dive into that question. Let me start by saying it is totally reasonable to ask, what does it mean for a startup with no customers to try marketing to customers? One of my biggest pet peeves with conventional entrepreneurship is how founders use the word customer. I think it's the most abused word in the world of startups because founders talk about someone being a customer, whether or not it's an actual paying customer. For instance, founders have talked to me about customer discovery as detailed in the book, The Lean Startup. To me, a founder of a startup with no customers talking about customer discovery sounds like an unmarried guy talking about spouse discovery. We call it dating for a reason. Founders of startups with no customers need a different mentality. They need a way to see the world that better reflects their reality. To address this challenge, I created the term people in pain to give words to the entrepreneurial equivalent of dating. When thinking about these terms, the challenge for founders is that customers are visible, whereas people in pain are invisible. Nascent has lots of tools to enable founders to see the invisible factors that affect their startup. Previously, we talked about the people to prospect funnel. I'll summarize it here, and if you want more details, you can check out episode 22 or look at the graphics in the Miro board, links in the show notes. The people to prospect funnel has 5 layers. At the top are blockers, people who will never become customers of the startup. This is almost everyone in the world. The next layer down are distractions, people who will never become customers, but they encourage the founder anyway. I'm talking about the people who encourage you to build an app for parents even though they've never had kids. They give you a false signal. The middle layer of the funnel are the people in pain, the special invisible people who can provide the first real signal that a startup might someday get a customer. The fourth layer down are the prospects, people who take real action to become a customer. And finally, the last layer at the bottom of the funnel are the customers, the people who actually pay money to the startup. To understand the people to prospect funnel, we'll first apply it to a conventional business where everything is visible. In this case, it's going to be a food cart pod. And then we'll apply it to a tech startup where all the pieces are invisible. At the food cart, we can see customers paying money to the chef. We can see a line of prospects, cash in hand. There's a crowd of people who walk past the food cart. Most of the people in that crowd are blockers. They do not care about food carts right now. Scattered within that crowd are a few special people in pain. These are people who are hungry, but they don't realize that there are food carts nearby. This is an example for a conventional business on a street corner. When it comes to a tech startup, what I want you to think is that there are 8 billion people on planet Earth, and for you, most of them are blockers. You need to look for people in pain, these invisible needles in a haystack that are buried in that gigantic crowd. Another concept that we covered was how businesses get their knowledge. This is how Nascent categorizes businesses. For conventional businesses like a pizza shop, most of the knowledge exists in the world, so entrepreneurs can learn the knowledge they need. The other type of business is a breakthrough startup, where the knowledge does not yet exist, so founders must create it. Within that category of breakthrough startup, it actually splits into 2 subcategories. There's the technology breakthrough startup, which is a new solution to an obviously valuable problem. At least there's knowledge about the problem. For example, the problem of weight loss. Ozempic was a breakthrough technology solution. By contrast, the other subcategory is the customer breakthrough startup, where there is a total lack of knowledge. It is not clear whether there is a valuable problem, and even if there is, the founder needs to go and create a new solution. For instance, Airbnb is a good example of a customer breakthrough startup because they created knowledge both about the hosts who wanted to rent out their homes, as well as the solution, the Airbnb app. Customer breakthrough startups are the most challenging type of business to launch because founders do not know if they will actually get paid for the knowledge that they create. Nascent enables founders to determine whether it's worth trying to create that knowledge in the first place. So that's the quick recap of episode 22. Now let's dive into that question from an anonymous viewer on YouTube who wrote, quote, "The people outside the fence are possible customers, prospects. You can put a sign that says, 'Come get some hot dogs.' Isn't that called marketing? Therefore, finding those people in pain is marketing." The viewer is digging into the example of the conventional business, the hot dog stand in the food cart pod. And I just want to call out that this question is even more relevant for tech startups. If this difference between marketing and searching for people in pain isn't clear when all of the pieces are visible, then it's going to be even more important for a tech startup where most of the pieces are invisible. And as we dig into this question about marketing, I want to call out that the bigger concept of knowledge creation applies to all aspects of the business. It applies to product and sales and operations and so on. So let's dig into this viewer's question. Let's analyze how a hot dog stand uses knowledge. In this scenario, we're going to say the hot dog vendor, who's an expert in hot dogs, goes out and hires a marketer who knows about marketing to hopefully drive more prospects to the hot dog stand. The marketer puts up a sign saying, "Come eat hot dogs," or maybe they get fancy and use a digital ad on Facebook. So can't the marketer just pay for ads to make prospects come to the business? Isn't this straightforward? No. There are 2 huge challenges, the messaging and the economics. Let's just talk about the message. The advertisement says, "Come eat hot dogs," but maybe it would be more persuasive to say all organic hot dogs or America's favorite hot dog or something else. There are infinite ways to pitch a product. But let's simplify and assume that this is an amazing marketer who knows how to send the perfect message to attract hot dog buyers. That brings up economics. Advertisements are measured by 1,000 impressions, getting people to see an ad 1,000 times. If that happens, how many of those people actually become customers? There's a classic quote about this from John Wanamaker, who said, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half." If only the conversion rate was 50%. More realistically, a 1% conversion rate in advertisements is normal. Links in the show notes with my sources. And when I say conversion, I'm not talking about actually landing paying customers. Conversion just means that the ad increases the likelihood of someone becoming a customer. It is really hard for an advertisement to drive someone to become a customer. And then there's the cost, which is about $10 per 1,000 impressions for a Facebook digital ad or an outdoor billboard by Clear Channel. So when the marketer pays $10, they are already wasting $9.90. Let's get into the mechanics of how this works. Here's the chain of events. A marketer uses an advertisement to get an audience to take an action. In this example, the marketer wants people to buy hot dogs. So the marketer has to decide on a message in the advertisement. Come eat hot dogs. And then the marketer has to pick a display platform like digital or physical. Once the ad is showing, it is irrelevant to almost all of the audience. But if the marketer gets lucky, there's going to be a guy in the audience who sees the ad at the same time that he happens to be thinking, I'm really hungry, but not just for anything. I really want to eat a hot dog. And if that lucky moment happens, this guy is going to do nothing. Only if the marketer gets lucky again and the hungry guy sees the ad a few more times will it all finally click into place and the guy will line up to buy a hot dog. Let's illuminate the invisible factors in this story. All of the marketer's knowledge that drove those advertising decisions, that was invisible. All of the guy's thinking that drove his decision to line up to buy the hot dog, that was also invisible. It was only when the guy lined up that we could actually see something happen. We saw the guy become a prospect. So when the viewer asked, quote, you can put a sign that says, come get some hot dogs, isn't that called marketing? The answer is yes, that is called marketing. And yes, you can just put up a sign, but you will waste your money. For the marketing to be effective, the marketer needs knowledge to answer key questions. Who is the right audience? What message would be compelling for that audience? And on which platforms would the audience actually see that advertisement? All of the knowledge that the marketer uses to answer those questions is invisible. I'm going to continue to beat the drum that Nascent is all about illuminating the unseen. So let's unpack another hidden factor in this marketing machine. Where does the marketer get their knowledge? From the data generated by existing customers. Marketers work at established businesses that have thousands or millions of existing customers. These customers generate the data that enables the marketer to get more customers. It's a flywheel. It's a virtuous cycle. So let's look at the same marketing challenge through the lens of a tech startup. We can stick with the hot dog theme and talk about a founder named Harry Hot Dog Lover. Most people just see a hot dog stand, but Harry sees a problem. He notices that some of the people buying hot dogs are actually aficionados, passionate about engaging with the worldwide hot dog community, but they are blocked right now. They are desperate to connect with other aficionados, but they just don't know how. Harry has the solution. He's going to create an app called Hot Dog World. Let's set aside whether this is a good idea and just focus on Harry's marketing challenge. To run that marketing campaign, Harry needs to pick an advertising message and pick a platform so that he can let his aficionados know that there's this new app for them. Harry needs knowledge. Who are these aficionados exactly? Where are they located? What platforms do they tend to look at? Harry is facing a cold start problem. Harry does not have the initial data he needs so that he can market his app effectively. Sure, he could pay $10 for 1,000 ad impressions, but that will just be wasted on blockers. Harry needs knowledge to break through these barriers. Your startup idea is probably much better than Harry's, but you still face the same challenge. Is it worth it to try to get all of that knowledge you need in order to start your startup? Your startup has no customers, so you are facing a data disaster. Nascent offers founders like you a strategy to overcome this challenge. You need to quickly get a signal whether it might be worth the time to create this knowledge. And we get that signal from invisible people in pain. So let's tie a bow around the question from the viewer on YouTube about the difference between marketing and searching for people in pain. The distinction is that marketing is a project where you deploy the knowledge that you already have. Whereas searching for people in pain is a project where you are trying to figure out, is it even worth it in the first place to try to get that knowledge? Right now, as a founder, all you need to do is focus on getting that signal. Your first step is to go record one brief conversation with one person who you think could benefit from your startup. That's it. And if you do that, email me about it and I'll show you how to apply Nascent to analyze the conversation and be decisive about whether your startup idea is an opportunity worth pursuing. Founders are often members of a community, so if you know of another founder who's wasting time on a marketing plan, please send them this episode. And if your startup is pivoting and you want to ensure that you don't waste another year on a bad idea, let's get on a call. You can schedule time with me using nascentidea.com. I always welcome feedback via email. My address is podcast@nascentidea.com, or you can tweet me @nascentidea. And please subscribe and leave a rating. It really helps. Okay, entrepreneurs, let's search for people in pain and decide if it's worth trying to get the knowledge to create that startup. You got this.